Hey gang, what's up? So a lot of people seem to like, or at least just watch, my previous video on Doctor Who ranking the 13 series. Apologies for the length of that one, but there was a lot to cover. Since then, we've had 3 new specials of the show released to celebrate its 60th anniversary, starring David Tennant, Catherine Tate, and the return of showrunner Russell T Davies. The show will return on Christmas Day in a couple of weeks with the new Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, starring as the lead, and we'll see him on an adventure with goblins, which I'm pretty intrigued by. So as well as looking at a review of the 3 specials that have just come out, I want to look at my thoughts of the future and what I want to see from Who going forward. Obviously there will be spoilers ahead for the specials. Don't say I didn't warn you. Let's begin by looking at these 3 specials overall before going into finer details with each one individually. The 60th anniversary specials were put into action during the COVID lockdown when there were several watch parties of Doctor Who going around, of which David, Catherine and Russell all got involved in and thought they wanted to give it another shot. It's great to have Russell T Davies back helming the show, as after the Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker departure, it looked like the show could have halted for a while. This was lucky with all these watch parties going on that Russell decided to come back. However, Who has only excelled further than it was previously, with a partnership with Disney Plus to stream across the rest of the world, and still remaining strong with the BBC, now gaining a whole Whoniverse section on iPlayer. It's quite exciting, with all the various spin-offs and specials available there. These 3 specials were designed to give Catherine and David one final adventure in the TARDIS, and had to jump through a few different hoops continuity-wise to make this happen, reintroducing David as the 14th Doctor rather than the 10th. Overall, I appreciate what these specials managed to achieve, and seeing my favourite TARDIS team return for a couple more episodes was fantastic. Everything I feel that I have a problem with these specials is that there aren't enough of them. These 3 episodes feel like they should be 3 episodes in an ongoing season rather than 3 specials. And maybe that's because they're going to tie into Ncuti's series going forward, but I believe they should be able to stand on their own as specials if they were going for that this time round. It may not have been possible due to timing, budget and various other variables, but I would have loved to see these 2 return for a whole series. At this point they're only doing 8 episode seasons rather than the full 13, so that could have introduced this format. It would have been great to have an overarching narrative over these 8 episodes with the Toymaker being the main antagonist throughout. But here we are. I'm still happy with these specials and I'm very delighted to review them here. So now let's look at each episode individually. I'll keep this one a lot briefer than usual. The Starbeast feels like a classic Russell T Davies Doctor Who adventure, cleverly crafted to reintroduce the cast and his style. It doesn't break any major new ground, but it was a nice refresher into what Who should be. Over the last few years, I've had an issue with it from a filmmaking perspective of that there have been too many close-ups and not enough establishing on wide shots. But this is corrected. Bringing back Donna and her family was handled very well. Their development in 15 years off screen was very logical. The Noble family expands this time round with the inclusion of Yasmin Finney's Rose. Yasmin Finney is incredible in Heartstopper, go watch that one. Rose is a transgender character that doesn't feel like representation for representation's sake, but is actually an integral part of the story and is very moving. Many young people now have her as a relatable and well-written character that they can look up to. This is representation that needs to be put out there and support people. The Meat is a fantastic antagonist for this outing. The combined use of prosthetics and CGI embellishments really makes his character believable and realistic. Having an adaptation of a comic book released for the 4th Doctor was a great move for the 60th anniversary. It binds together both veteran fans who grew up with the comics and modern fans who are watching it as a visual medium. Everyone can enjoy it together. Also, the new TARDIS is stunning. I'm sure I'll just look into that in future with Ncuti's as they get to explore it more. But yeah, it feels like a natural progression of Capaldi's TARDIS, and that was previously my favourite. We'll see how this one gets on. However, there are a couple of things I have issue with, which is perfectly natural. Although I love the design of the new Sonic and it feels like a natural progression of David's previous one, I wasn't the biggest fan of how it was used. I would have also liked to see him get or make the Sonic rather than just walking out of the TARDIS with it in the first special. This also comes with another issue from the handover from Jodie to David, as during the regeneration his clothes changed. And then they never addressed that again, the switch happened. This needed a bit more explanation, or just like dump him in a different set of clothes at the beginning. It's not that difficult. The Sonic's power does make sense, as the Doctor has been travelling for billions of years at this point, and it would make sense that his technology can do more, but from a storytelling perspective, I like when the Sonic is used less and the Doctor gets more tactile and gets to think for himself a bit. Having him make little screens rather than just reading off the Sonic was quite nice and made the interaction with Shirley at the beginning of the episode a little bit more interesting. I wasn't the biggest fan of the hard light shields. You could have just thrown some furniture in there or done something a little more interesting. Just thinking of Shirley, she is an excellent character and I really approve of her wheelchair having missiles in it. The other problem I had was just dispelling the Dr. Donna. This is something I brought up in my series ranking as I was slightly worried about this aspect. They handled it decently, but yeah. Getting Donna's memories back throughout the episode was a really cool progression. Having the meta-crisis split between Donna and Rose was a logical and great loophole. It pushed the narrative along in interesting ways and I was really looking forward to seeing how they explored this dynamic. Only they didn't. After saving the day, they just get rid of it. I would have liked something extra there. I would have liked to see an episode where the Doctor takes Rose and Donna somewhere and tries to fix the meta crisis. It could have made for some excellent story possibilities, and actually going into it I thought that's what Wild Blue Yonder would be. The other way of looking at it though is that David and Catherine just wanted an extra spin and we don't want that baggage from previously, which is totally fair enough. Just, I would have liked to see that personally. People might agree with me, who knows. Overall, this was a jam-packed episode of what Who should be. We've got mega set pieces, we've got these two new alien races battling it out on Earth, and Unit. We love a bit of Unit, we've been missing them. Wild Blue Yonder is an interesting one. I watched it at 2 AM with a bunch of friends after a night out, and it definitely made the horror aspect more apparent. The setup of the TARDIS and Sonic going, because of a horrifying threat that even that was scared of, was a great setup for the episode and really allowed David and Catherine to take over this week. Additionally, them playing this week's monsters, the Not Things, was a great surprise and really showed why these actors are so popular. Having an hour of TV where two actors chase themselves around a really long CGI corridor was a very interesting episode, surprisingly. You can rely on these two, and it really tested the audience and their characters. The story had an easy resolution that completely made sense, and provided some excellent character moments for the Doctor and Donna throughout the episode, reflecting on all the adventures that they've had. It's particularly chilling when they're talking about the Flux, which is a weird one. The Flux gets brought up a few times in these specials. Fair play, we're sticking with the canon. The reveal of the long arms was excellently played out, with the editing being very misleading, which I really appreciated. Using editing trickery is something that works really well with horror. Seeing the scenes playing out and then cutting back to the first one, you're a bit like, hang on, I thought these were happening at two different points in time. This later happens as well when the Doctor and Donna are separated and run into each other in different rooms, because the editing merges where each one of them is. So when they emerge into their rooms, you really don't know who's who. It really adds to the chilling aspect of this episode. I really wish that it lent even more into the horror aspect of things. Regarded, it is a family show and needs to remain quite neutral for younger audiences. I felt like I could see through some of the CGI bit, which may be me just having experience in looking at this stuff a lot, but the hallway was a little bit to be desired at first. On second view, I'd adjusted a bit. The other thing was the Mavity cold open. I quite liked it and it was just a little joke. I thought it would be a situation that played out in the future episode, with the Toymaker maybe doing a similar thing with time as a rule that was established here. But no, it was just there. And I guess it's just Mavity rather than gravity in the Whoniverse now. Wonder if that will be addressed in Ncuti's time. Seeing Wilf for the last time was poignant. The fact that Bernard Cribbins passed away 5 days after shooting his scene was tragic, but I'm just so glad we got to see him at least one more time. I'm guessing he was going to play more of a part in the giggle when they had to cut his scenes, which is a shame, but I'm so glad we got what we did. Finally, the giggle. Straight up, this episode should have been 2 parts. I liked all the elements of this episode, but just wanted even more time to properly flesh them out in a proper Russell T Davies fashion. He is known for some excellent 2-parters, and this could have been one of them. Alas, it is a fantastic solo episode. This is another instance like the Star Beast, where the social message is carefully woven throughout the narrative, and I really appreciate that rather than just being slapped in the face. Talking to you, arachnids in the UK. Neil Patrick Harris was perfect casting for the Toymaker. I find it strange that they actually didn't have him in mind when they made the script in the first place. Like, who else could have played this part? He really channels that Count Olaf vibe from the series of Unfortunate Events, and it's fantastic to see that again. Seeing Unit in full force and their new Stark Tower-esque base was awesome, especially after the lack of Unit in the last few years. And also Kate! Yes, she was in flux, but did she really do anything? They didn't get her doing much except standing around like every other character in the Shipping era. Now she actually gets involved in the story and has to dance with the Toymaker, and it's entertaining. Apparently there's a lot leaked about Mel being in this episode. I knew she was going to be in the next season, as there's a set photo of her on a motorbike with Shooty, but it was actually a surprise to me that she was in these specials. She was a great addition to the crew for this episode and provided some excellent dialogue between the Doctor and Donna. Apparently she actually isn't in the classic series for that long, so seeing her here is a lot to flesh out the character. Her returning also furthers Donna's question about why the Doctor's face has come back, a returning theme throughout these 3 specials that needed to be answered, and I'm quite satisfied with the answer. The Toymaker's shop in 1925 is really fun and is a good peep into his domain. I kind of wish we saw a little bit more of that, which would have been explored in the 2-parter. The puppets were creepy and well executed. Donna whacking one of them against the wall until its head popped off was quite entertaining. Using that word a lot this week, and I think it really describes the episodes. And then there was the marionette show. I do love this scene and do watch the clip on YouTube quite a bit. Clara got done so dirty by his reaction to her being killed by a bird. It's also funny and interesting that none of the recent companions made an appearance and the Flux did. I mean, none of Jodie's companions had meaningful exits, so I guess that's why. The game was a simple idea that completely made sense for the Toymaker's character. However, after him being hyped up for a while, I was expecting him to have a much larger presence in the specials overall, whereas he was very much confined to this one and not connected throughout. My favourite scene of this special was the Spice Girls montage at Eunice HQ, because it really showed off his power and how terrifying he really is with his reality warping abilities. Then they just take him out by playing catch. It was a good twist and worked with the rules they'd established. I just wanted it to be a little bit more extra. Killing the 14th Doctor, spoilers, outside on the helipad was expected from my point of view. As soon as they walked out there and the Toymaker had a beam, I was like, he done. But this now makes the 3rd Doctor in a row to be killed by a laser beam. What I wasn't expecting from this scene, however, much like everyone else, was the introduction of bi-generation, where the Doctors split into 14 and 15 at the same time. This was awesome and very confusing for me at first. There's little information about why this has happened, and I'm really hoping that gets explored in future, because bi-generation now seems like an integral concept of Time Lords. I would have maybe liked some foreshadowing, but it was a very nice surprise there in the moment. It works for this story and allows us to give 14 a full-on send-off while venturing on with 15 into the future of what the universe might hold. Hopefully in the 15th Doctor's era we understand a bit more about bi-generation and meet a lot of these open cliffhangers from these specials, like the Meets boss and whoever took the Master's gold tooth thing. Seeing Shooty for the Doctor as the first time really intensified my hopes for the show going forward. I think he's going to make a fantastic Doctor after me seeing him in Sex Education. He's already made a bold statement and I cannot wait for the Christmas special. It's great to have that tradition back, and him at the helm of it is going to be fantastic. 14 retiring with the Nobles was a very lovely conclusion for this character. It's another Doctor from Tennant that gets his own ending with one of the companions, poor Martha, just abandoned on her own. But hey ho, he is a crowd favourite, and it's nice to see him just stop rather than continuing running like Shooty is going to continue doing. Along with many people, it's my headcanon that eventually This branch of the Doctor will regenerate into the Curator from the 50th anniversary special, cycling through a few familiar faces on the way, as the Curator did say back in the 50th. Overall, this special was an excellent story in of itself, and tied up the previous two, leaving a lovely ending for David Tennant's Doctor with no plans to return this time. That's what I said last time though. But this feels more like a fitting conclusion. So I know this video has been a bit rushed with my opinions, but I'd rather give an overview of all three rather than spending time doing a video on each one individually. When it comes to series and shows and things, I want to take less time with them overall, and that makes room for making more videos about different things, I guess. There's a lot of the media that I like that I want to cover on this channel, and so making 3 videos on these 3 specials would have taken a long time. I'm already quite busy as it is. Just to tag on to the end of this video, I do want to say what I want to see from Who going forward. With the Christmas special right around the corner, and Ncuti's first season happening some point next year, here's a list of 5 things I want to see from Who. Number 1. Use the Sonic less. Generally, this was handled decently well after the Star Beast, but is an issue that was plaguing the show for the last few eras. The Doctor can be more tactile and think outside the box in the future. Number 2. Give us some spin-offs. Since the main seasons of the show have been cut down from 13 to 8 episodes, I want to see them release more content in the wider Whoniverse. Not too much, as we don't want it to fall into the Disney oversaturation situation, but just a couple of shows such as maybe a unit spin-off or, as many rumours suggest, an 8th Doctor series during the Time War. Could be fun. Number 3. Don't keep companions around for too long. As I mentioned in my series ranking, I prefer spending less seasons with a companion, but really understanding them in the short time they have. I feel like there's a much stronger connection with characters like Martha or Bill, who only got 1 season, rather than any of the companions with Jodie. Hopefully, Millie Gibson's Ruby Sunday is quite interesting, but I don't want her to stick around for too long because I like to see Ncuti with a few faces. Number 4. A worthwhile series arc. Have faith in Russell T Davies and don't really need to elaborate on this one. Number 5. A range of completely new and classic monsters. What I mean by this is I don't want to keep seeing faces like the Master, the Weeping Angels and such like that. We've seen a lot of them in New Who, and there are countless ideas to draw from the classic era and new creations. Russell's first run of the show featured many instant classics like the Jadoon, Ood and Slitheen. More of that please, and maybe some other Time Lords. Bring back Omega and the Rani. I really want to see what they're all about. Okay, that's a brief list of what I want to see. It could have been its own video, but alas. I hope you've enjoyed my brief review of these episodes. Ranking them, I'd say that they get better as the weeks go on. Originally I thought the second was my favourite, but after rewatching The Giggle, I definitely like that one more. The Christmas special isn't too far away now, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I should have another video out next week, but depending on how busy I end up being, that might be a little bit later than usual. In the meantime, go check out other stuff that I've got going on this channel, and maybe subscribe, it would really mean a lot. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers at the moment, and I will then make a ranking video of all of Disney's animated films. Thank you for your continued support, and it's time to get Christmassy next week. Until then, have a great week and know you're awesome.